The following program, NORML Show Live, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate for the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate or encourage any illegal activity and advise all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws by visiting NORML.org, NORML.org. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers of NORML Show Live are their own and do not necessarily reflect the philosophy and policies of NORML. Listener discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think we need to think and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws presents NORML Show Live, Marijuana Nation. Now, here's your host, NORML's Outreach Coordinator, Radical Russ Belville.
Good afternoon, tokers and tokettes. It is Tuesday, July 26, 2011, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Thanks for joining us for the next 60 minutes of news, talk, interviews, information, music, comedy, and more by, for, and about the cannabis community. All alone once again here in Rolla J Studios, unfortunately. Ganja John the Pirate and Wiz Khalico, they're still out there and about in the world, I believe in Southern Oregon now, following the Slightly Stupid tour. You can see how lonely I am here. But joining us from our virtual studio in beautiful Grastoria, Oregon is the lovely and talented Cannabis Carrie.
Hi, Russ.
Hi.
I'm sorry you're so lonely. I'm here for you.
Well, I'm glad you're here for me, Carrie. It always makes my day go a little bit easier. We got all sorts of great stuff coming up in today's show. We are going to be featuring music from Slightly Stupid today for our Electric Tuesday. We are promoting the Slightly Stupid Seedless Summer Tour. Check it out at seedlesssummertour.com. And then at half past the hour, we're visited by ESPN producer Sean Pamphilon. He'll be joining us via Skype. And he's got more information on his new project, a sequel to the Run, Ricky, Run documentary about Ricky Williams, the Miami Dolphins running back who was a medical marijuana patient. So we'll talk to him more about that and drugs in sports and the end of the NFL lockout and anything else that we could bring up. We'll also take your calls at 971-533-7111. But before we get to all of that, we've got Cannabis Carrie with our hemp headlines. What's in the news today?
Well, today we have an update on a case that we've been actually following for a few years now about that New Jersey man who used marijuana to treat his MS symptoms. Also, a middle school child gets a big payday for his part in a sting. I want to tell you about some scheduling news. But first up, we've got some video from President Obama. So all that coming up on today's Hemp Headlines.
Okay, so stick around. It's the voice of the Marijuana Nation. We'll bring all of that to you coming up next on the show. We also want to remind you all to check out NORML.org for all of the latest information for the cannabis community. And remind you that we have got an upgrade to NORML.org coming up really soon. So keep your eyes on the web for that. And something brand new, if you're out there and you want to go to Seattle Hemp Fest, the 3-day 20th anniversary Seattle Hemp Fest, and you're thinking, gee, I'd love to go, but I got nowhere to stay, I've got the solution for you. I'm opening up Radical Russ's Party Suite at Seattle Hemp Fest, and if you want to be a part of it, we'll talk more about that in hour two. We'll get all the details ironed out, but basically, I'm looking to rent a big suite and share it with some of you, the listeners to NORML Show Live. We're going to have ourselves a party time for 4 days there in Seattle, Washington, and you can be a part of it. So stay tuned. We'll get you more details on that coming up later on in the show. Oh, it's going to be a lot of fun at the Seattle Hemp Fest this year. 3 days of fun and festivities with 150,000 of your closest friends right there on the waterfront at Puget Sound. It's the Seattle Hemp Fest. Check out hempfest.org for more details. And again, we'll talk about the party suite coming up in a little bit. It's NORML Show Live. We're back right after this.
This is NORML Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
In today's busy world, we're inundated by advertising for all types of pharmaceuticals that come with a laundry list of potential side effects. Shouldn't you have better medical choices? Natural alternatives to pills pushed by Big Pharma? At Alternative Medical Choices, you could choose natural, safe, and effective alternative therapies that are right for your budget without nasty side effects. Cannabis, or marijuana, has been a legal medicine in the Pacific Northwest since 1998. Our doctors will help determine your qualifications for a medical marijuana recommendation in Oregon, no matter where you live. Our massage therapists will ease your aches and stress with soothing hemp seed oil or cannabis-infused massage salves. We also offer acupuncture, Reiki, and other alternative health therapies. Call Alternative Medical Choices in Portland, Oregon at 503-288-5579 or visit our website at www.altmedchoices.com. We specialize in out-of-state recommendations. That's www.altmedchoices.com or call 503-288-5579.
Did you know there are more tokers than Texans? Hi, I'm Radical Russ Belville, host of NORML Show Live. It's true, there are more adults who will consume cannabis in America this year than the population of Texas. This and thousands of other statistics and polls are part of my new book, NORML's Big Book of Marijuana Facts, including 19 full-color poster-sized infographics of cannabis data.
An entirely legitimate topic for debate.
If we're going to have that debate, we need the facts. But NORML's Big Book of Marijuana Facts isn't just some listing of statistics and tables. It's truly a big book, a huge weatherproof binder that becomes its own 12 by 18 presentation easel. The colorful charts are jam-packed with facts that draw interest, and the explanatory text is all rigorously researched from reputable sources. You can make the case against prohibition with the government's own numbers. You can learn more about NORML's Big Book of Marijuana Facts by visiting stash.norml.org/bigbook. Pre-orders are available and shipping begins September 1st, 2011. That's stash.norml.org/bigbook.
Yar! Thar be pirates here! Har, 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 har. The Pirate King! You know why we pirates love the NORML Show? Har, har! 'Cause it's always smoking matey! Har, 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 har.
This is NORML Show Live.
To be the Pirate King!
Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, consumer cannabis. It's time for this week's NORML News with Cannabis Carrie.
President Obama appeared at a town hall event in Maryland on Friday where a doctoral student named Steve asked Mr. Obama a question about ending the war on drugs. President Obama's response, while disappointing, will not surprise any regular listeners to the show.
Let me see. This gentleman right here in the blue shirt.
Mr. President, good to meet you. My name's Steve. I'm a doctoral student here.
What are you studying?
Political rhetoric.
Uh-oh. How am I doing so far?
Pretty good, pretty good.
I feel like I'm getting graded up there. Go ahead.
All right. Much sacrifice is being asked of our generation. So when are our economic perspectives going to be addressed? For example, when is the war on drugs and society going to be abandoned and replaced by a more sophisticated and cost-effective program of rehabilitation such as the one in Portugal?
I have stated repeatedly, and it's actually reflected in our most recent statement by our Office of Drug Policy, that we need to have an approach that emphasizes prevention, treatment, a public health model for reducing drug use in our country. We've got to put more resources into that. We can't simply focus on interdiction because, frankly, no matter how good of a job we're doing when it comes to an interdiction approach, if there is high demand in this country for drugs, we are going to continue to see not only drug use, but also the violence associated with the drug trade. This has obviously become extremely severe for Mexico. And we are working now with the Mexican government in part to help them deal with these transnational drug dealers. But one of the things that I've said to President Calderon is we understand that we have an obligation here in this country to reduce demand. And the only way that you reduce demand is through treatment and prevention. And there are a lot of communities around the country where if you have a serious drug problem and you decide, I'm going to kick the habit, and you seek out treatment, assuming you're not wealthy, because it may not be covered even if you have health insurance, but particularly if you're poor, you may have a 90-day wait before you can even get into a program. Well, obviously, if you're trying to kick a habit, waiting 90 days to get help is a problem. So I agree with you that we have to make sure that our balance in our approach is also focused on treatment, prevention, and part of our challenge is also getting into schools early and making sure that young people recognize the perils of drug use. Now, am I, just to make sure that I'm actually answering your question, am I willing to pursue a decriminalization strategy as an approach? No. But I am willing to make sure that we're putting more resources on the treatment and prevention side. Okay?
Okay, as you can see from the graphic that I was flashing up there, Mr. Obama's budget is still a 2-to-1 budget in favor of interdiction and incarceration over treatment and prevention. And he continues to go on saying that we need to reduce the demand. Why? Why is it the American government's responsibility to reduce the demand for cannabis in this country? They have yet to show a direct harm from that demand of cannabis. And understand that the idea of reducing demand kind of implies that you cannot eliminate demand. No matter how far we reduce the demand for drugs or cannabis, there's always going to be some demand. And it seems to me that Mr. Obama is wedded to the notion that whatever demand there is needs to be responded to with forced rehab or imprisonment. And as far as people that want to turn themselves in for drug rehabilitation, but they have a 90-day waiting period before and they're trying to kick the habit, well, part of the reason for that is because of these drug courts that are putting pot smokers into those beds, requiring them to be in those beds when they don't want or need rehabilitation. Get those people out of the rehabs. You'll have plenty of beds for the heroin, meth, and cocaine addicts who are really looking to get help.
We have an update on a story we did about a New Jersey man who was convicted of growing a few marijuana plants in his backyard to treat symptoms of his multiple sclerosis. A ruling this morning rejected John Ray Wilson's appeal that he was entitled to a personal use defense and also that his 5-year prison sentence was excessive. Wilson, who is now 38, was arrested back in August of 2008 when his small marijuana patch was spotted by a helicopter. He said he did not have insurance and could not afford the prescription drugs to treat his symptoms, so he was using cannabis medically. But in 2009, a judge ruled he could not use a medical defense in front of a jury of his peers, and they found him guilty. He was released on a $15,000 bail pending an appeal of his convictions, and although the 3-judge appellate panel wrote in their ruling that they sympathized with the defendant's medical condition, they could find no abuse or discretion or error of judgment by the trial court. The decision was handed down in a 15-page opinion that found ultimately that the trial court's determination that there were no extraordinary mitigating factors. It means that Mr. Wilson will have to serve out his 5 years.
No extraordinary mitigating factors, aside from the fact the guy's got multiple sclerosis, and he's in a state that now is a medical marijuana state. So his crime really was getting caught too early, right? But again, he wouldn't be able to grow his own in New Jersey anyway, so he'd still be in trouble. This is just ridiculous. When our people, when our government, when our legal officials look at the law and only look at the letter of that law, and they say, well, here he is, man with plants, must throw him in prison. Regardless of the fact that it was for medical use, regardless of the fact that the people of this state think that people who are using medically shouldn't be punished in this manner, my God, to put this man in prison for 5 years without his medical marijuana, to make him suffer like that, that's a violation of the 8th Amendment's protections against cruel and unusual punishment. This is, again, another barbarity that is enacted by this stupid war on a plant. It must end. We cannot stand for this any longer.
In the upcoming elections and most likely many future elections, states that enjoy ballot measures are finding legalization bills making their way towards a public vote. A group in California has begun their own initiative to legalize marijuana in California on the 2012 ballot. The proponents behind the effort are not affiliated with the Oakland-based backers of last year's Proposition 19. The initiative was cleared on Monday to start gathering signatures. Named by its backers, the initiative is called the Regulate Marijuana Like Wine Act of 2012. If passed, it would decriminalize marijuana sales, the distribution of cannabis. It would decriminalize possession, use, cultivation, processing, and transportation by people at least 21 years old. According to the initiative, zoning restrictions would not apply to growing and processing the plant. Advertising of marijuana would be banned unless the advertising was for a medical use. The agricultural taxes and regulations would apply to any marijuana production that is over 25 flowering plants or 12 processed pounds per year. Under those limits would be considered non-commercial or personal use. Sales of marijuana that has at least 1% THC would be allowed to anyone over 21. Now, written into the measure is the language to direct state and local officials not to cooperate with the enforcement of the federal ban on marijuana. The Regulate Marijuana Like Wine Act of 2012 is being spearheaded by James Gray, William McPike, and Steve Cubby, who now have until December 19th to collect valid signatures from at least 504,760 registered voters, and then it will be put to the voters of California. James Gray is a former Orange County Superior Court judge and also the 2004 Libertarian nominee for the U.S. Senate. Steve Cubby is a longtime marijuana advocate from the South Lake Tahoe area and was the 1998 Libertarian gubernatorial nominee. They are not involved with the Coalition for Cannabis Policy Reform, the group that formed out of last year's Prop 19 ballot initiative. It lost in a close race with only 53.5% of voters rejecting the idea that the state could legalize marijuana for all adults. Now, the Coalition for Cannabis Policy Reform also has expressed an intent to put another ballot measure for legalizing marijuana, also for the 2012 election.
All right, this is great news here, and of course we've talked with Judge James Gray before on the show in our Cops Say Legalized Drugs segment. He's a speaker with LEAP as well, and the one thing I like the most about this initiative is changing the word alcohol to wine. Regulate marijuana like wine. I think that's a brilliant choice there by the proponents of this initiative. You say regulate marijuana like alcohol, and alcohol, when you say alcohol, people don't think beer and wine, they think shots, they think spirits, hard liquor. And so, saying regulate marijuana like wine, I think is a good thing. For one, you're talking about a less potent substance that people tend to enjoy more. And two, wine adds this connoisseur aspect to it, a little more highbrow, a little more upper crust than, regulate marijuana like beer. I think that is good too, because I think marijuana and wine have that in common, in that they're both these kind of subcultures that appreciate a fine plant. So good luck to you guys. Let's get it legal any way we can.
And tonight you may want to catch the award-winning show Frontline, whose program this evening is called The Pot Republic. It centers on the front lines of marijuana legalization in California. The show is known for its extensive coverage of issues and will dissect the California industry that has sprung up surrounding cannabis. They say the bulk of marijuana consumed in the U.S. used to come from Mexico and Canada, but now it is believed that more than half of marijuana consumed in the U.S. is grown in the basements and backyards of Americans, and more than half of that is believed to be from California. So Frontline will explore this staggering black market that has emerged underneath the state's medical marijuana law that has been on the books since 1996. You can also look to your local programming for times to watch the show.
All right, we've got a preview here that's up at our front page at NORML.org. Let's take a look at this Frontline PBS show.
The Silicon Valley of pot, the marijuana megastore.
With a little bit of delay in that video. How nice. Okay. This is what happens when we're doing it live.
Green Rush. The Napa of cannabis.
California is the leading producer of marijuana from the United States.
I didn't vote for it, but it's the law of the land.
Everybody's happy.
But is the party...
Well, we should have let this one buffer up before we loaded it up for the show. We got a few more skips in here to get past. Sorry about that, dear listeners. I hate it when these kind of things happen. Love that internet, don't we? All right, it's at frontline.org.
I was told by Justice Department this is clearly not legal.
Frontline and the Center for Investigative Reporting go inside the...
Yeah, we're just going to get more skip on that. So check that out at NORML's front page, normal.org. It's the Pot Republic. We'll fix this editing in post and make it sound better for the podcast. Until then, let's take a well-deserved live break here. We got plenty more to talk about. In hour 2, I've got some recording from National Review Online examining how Obama is losing the youth vote. Plus, we've got Sean Pamphilon at half past the hour. Stay tuned.
It's 20 after the hour, and we have to take a short break, if you know what I mean. Please support these sponsors who support NORML Show Live.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
In today's busy world, we're inundated by advertising for all types of pharmaceuticals that come with a laundry list of potential side effects. Shouldn't you have better medical choices? Natural alternatives to pills pushed by Big Pharma? At Alternative Medical Choices, you could choose natural, safe, and effective alternative therapies that are right for your budget without nasty side effects. Cannabis, or marijuana, has been a legal medicine in the Pacific Northwest since 1998. Our doctors will help determine your qualifications for a medical marijuana recommendation in Oregon, no matter where you live. Our massage therapists will ease your aches and stress with soothing hemp seed oil or cannabis-infused massage salves. We also offer acupuncture, Reiki, and other alternative health therapies. Call Alternative Medical Choices in Portland, Oregon at 503-288-5579 or visit our website at www.altmedchoices.com. We specialize in out-of-state recommendations. That's www.altmedchoices.com or call 503-288-5579.
La cucaracha. Ya no puede caminar.
You're listening to NORML Show Live.
Porque le falta marihuana que fumar.
The voice of the marijuana nation.
Tokers, there's no good reason to get your dog stoned. While it might not harm them physically, imagine being a dog who already begs for treats all day, and then imagine that dog having the munchies. Not cool.
Georgia. Hi, this is Willie Nelson, and I need your help. Alcohol prohibition didn't work in the 20s, and marijuana prohibition isn't working today. It's time we stop arresting law-abiding citizens because they prefer marijuana over alcohol. Nearly 2,000 Americans are arrested every day on marijuana charges. We're unfairly destroying the lives and careers of hundreds of thousands of people each year simply because they smoke marijuana. These are not criminals. They're average citizens like you, good neighbors who work hard, raise families, pay taxes, and contribute to their communities. We need your help to end marijuana prohibition once and for all. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
It's time for your daily Toker Tunes, the best in 420 friendly music from all genres that uplifts, entertains, and informs the public. Today we bring you tunes for Electric Tuesday, our segment featuring the best of modern electric music in the genres of dance, new age, house, and experimental. If you'd like to submit your song to be played on NORML Show Live, send it to us at stash@normal.org. Now here's some more great independent marijuana music for today's Daily Toker Tunes.
Well, as you know, our good friend Cannabis Cure UK is on the road here in America, and we don't know where on the West Coast he is today. So understandable that we don't have a tune from UK today. He'll be back, I'm sure, soon enough. But in the meantime, I'm going to bring you some more music from our friends Slightly Stupid. They're on tour right now, the Seedless Summer Tour, and you can get more information at seedlesssummertour.com. And this next track is a cover, I believe, and it's off of their album Slightly Not Stoned Enough to Eat Breakfast But Still Stupid. It's a great album title. Actually, it's an EP, just 7 songs on this. This is Slightly Stupid with their cover of the Dead classic No You Rider.
You want a copy of that song for your iPod?
If it will
Check
play.
out the
Let's
Daily
see if we
Toker
can
Tunes
fix that.
at the Stash blog by
because
surfing
that's
to
not
Stash.
right at all. Let's try this again. Oh, the file won't play. Isn't that nice? Okay, so we will take a break, and when we're back, we'll get you some tunes.
Hey, Tokers, this is Radical Russ encouraging you to check out the great music this summer. And one group you should definitely check out are big supporters of NORML and marijuana legalization, and that's Slightly Stupid. Get all the details online at seedlesssummertour.com. Slightly Stupid. Revolution. Swayze. And Cisco. It's the Stonia show of the summer, coming to Missoula, Boise, Redmond, Washington, Eugene and Jacksonville, Oregon, Lake Tahoe, Berkeley, San Diego, Salt Lake City, Aspen, Denver, Asbury Park, Guilford, New Hampshire, Philadelphia, Boston, New York, Baltimore, Charlotte, Cocoa Beach, Boca Raton, St. Augustine, Atlanta, Raleigh, Columbus, Ohio, Chicago, Mesa, Arizona, and Irvine, California. Don't miss it. For more details, visit SeedlessSummerTour.com. Seedless Summer Tour is sponsored by Seedless.com, Sector 9, Groove Shark, Revolution Vodka, and Silver Surfer Vaporizers.
What would I do?
up, guys? I'm Rory from Revolution, chilling at the Spring Fest in San Bernardino, California. Just chilling at the NORML Live. Want to say what's up and keep it green.
Marijuana and alcohol are the two most popular recreational drugs in America. Marijuana smoking is non-toxic, relatively safe, and has a low risk of dependence. Alcohol drinking is potentially fatal, dangerous to society, and is quite addictive. Marijuana is safer, so why are we driving people to drink? That's the question of the new book, Marijuana is Safer, So Why Are We Driving People to Drink? By Paul Armentano, Mason Tvert, and Steve Fox. Visit Amazon.com or ChelseaGreen.com today to order your copy of Marijuana is Safer, or visit MarijuanaIsSafer.com.
Legalization, decriminalization, lowest law enforcement priority, medical marijuana, ganja sacrament, consumer cannabis, industrial hemp. The world of marijuana law reform involves many different aspects of cannabis that interact nearly every public policy discussion in America, including healthcare, the economy, global climate change, law enforcement in prisons, immigration, religion, free speech, energy policy, and war. Now, we take a look at how re-legalizing marijuana will change the world in our NORML Show Live Cannabis Conversations.
All right, welcome back, everyone. 32 after the hour, and for our Cannabis Conversation today, we are going to the world of sports, and we are joined by ESPN producer Sean Pamphilon on Skype. Sean, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Russ. How you doing?
So glad to have you here. Thank you. We got to meet the first time right here in Portland, Oregon. You were at the NORML National Conference. And, of course, you were showing your documentary. It was part of that 30 on 30 series called Run, Ricky, Run. So just wanted to talk to you a little bit about that and what you're up to these days.
Well, that whole series was very successful. And, that film was very well received, and one of the things I did in negotiating for to do that film for ESPN was I retained the rights along with Ricky to the footage after a year holdback, which the year holdback just ended a couple months ago. And I shot over 300 hours of footage for that film, and there are things that, because of the time constraints, 50 minutes, we didn't get a chance to get into. Some things that I felt were very important. So we focused more on his biographical information and his personal struggles. But during the process of making that film, I also went out and I was doing things like I just heard your ad for Marijuana is Safer. I interviewed Paul Armentano and I interviewed Mason Tvert back in 2007. And originally, the film I wanted to make was much different than the one that ESPN aired. So hopefully, with the help of your audience and the help of other people that I can encourage to help me finish the film that I wanted to make 7 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. So, do you have a preliminary title, working title for the film?
Yeah, it's called The Truth Cabin, and it's a project that's on Kickstarter right now. If you go to Kickstarter.com and type in The Truth Cabin, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get like a grassroots effort and get hopefully like 3,500 people to donate $2,500 or to donate $25 in an effort to support, honest, real journalism. So I went to Colorado when Mason Tvert, commissioned that billboard, Ricky, come to Denver, where we support your safer choice. So I was in Colorado in 2007, and it was the night that the Rockies clinched to go to the World Series. So here I am, standing outside of Coors Field in a town that's sponsored by alcohol and having conversations with people about the fact that the guy that I'm doing a documentary on, can't play professional sports today because he's suspended for reasons that are beyond me. So I had a bunch of really good conversations with Colorado Rocky fans about this, and they were empathetic towards anyone who's been either discriminated against or lost their livelihood, because of issues with marijuana.
Mm-hmm. You know, we covered the Ricky Williams story, and for those of you who may not know who we're talking about, Ricky Williams was a star running back in college. He was heavily recruited into the NFL and had, many productive seasons, but was troubled by continual failing of the NFL's drug testing policy. He kept turning up positive for marijuana, and he said he's a medical marijuana user, uses it for severe anxiety. He'd been on Paxil, didn't like it. So what is happening for Ricky right now? He's still staying out of football, and is he using medical cannabis at all?
No, he's actually in football. He's been in, he came back, he's playing, and he's not. He's not because of the very reasons, that they cost him the millions of dollars to begin with. Mm-hmm. Because when he's done playing, I'm sure that, eventually that he'd probably find his way back towards it, for the reasons we discussed, and also for pleasure reasons. But until then, there's just too much money to be lost, doing this. So, if he wants to, he can drink a beer.
Yeah. So he has to make the choice that a lot of Americans have to choose, is between employment or the medicine that works best for him.
Yeah, he has that, but he's got a tougher choice in that, in his culture, a lot of the athletes will take prescription-based, painkillers, and it's something that he is very adamantly opposed to. So in an environment when people either mask, their pain with prescription medication or with alcohol, he has an aversion to both. So that's part of the reason why he learned to meditate. He needed to be able to do things with his mind that he wasn't going to be able to rely on. Because, when I interviewed, a bunch of people for the original film Run, Ricky, Run, Kyle Turley was one of the people I interviewed. He's a former NFL lineman, is a very staunch advocate of marijuana use for pain usage and also just for pleasure. But Kyle's got a band right now, and he's been traveling around the country for about the past 2 years. And when I interviewed Kyle back in 2004, he wasn't done playing yet, but he came out and said, it's ridiculous that so many players have to destroy their stomach linings when if they wanted to, they could just sit home like Bob Marley and get nice. That's what Kyle said.
Well put. We're speaking with Sean Pamphilon from ESPN, and you mentioned that about the players, especially when we're talking NFL players that are just loaded up on all sorts of non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, painkillers that have all sorts of side effects. We saw in Brett Favre's career, for example, where he admitted to an addiction to painkillers and was kind of given a soft treatment, you might say, by the NFL. But then someone like, say, Percy Harvin with the Minnesota Vikings, who has a severe migraine problem, and this hits me personally because my wife is a patient for migraines here in the state of Oregon, has a severe migraine problem, uses medical marijuana, and he gets the book thrown at him. Address that hypocrisy within the NFL, the use of all these painkillers versus the demonization of marijuana.
Well, that's one of the things I'm hoping to address in this film. I mean, when I interviewed Alan St. Pierre in D.C. back in 2007, and I plan to speak to him again, the executive director of NORML, and just had a fascinating conversation about the government's use of high-profile athletes in their drug war and using them as quote-unquote role models. And my feeling is that I wish these guys could be real models and say what is actually going on in their sports to help them be able to play the very things that give us this pleasure. If people understood what athletes, especially people in contact sports, go through to get their bodies ready to perform for you, I think they'd be more than willing to let that person have a few cannabinoid-based pills or smoke to their heart's content, as long as they were getting the same result. I mean, hypocrisy is the very word. When Ricky asked me about doing the film initially, he says, "What do you think it's about?" And I said, hypocrisy, without a doubt. I mean, if you turn on the television and you're getting the Coors Light cold hard facts thrown at you, to me it's ridiculous. Based upon something that you have one drug that had its time of prohibition but became legal again right around the same time that the other one was put into prohibition. And one of the things that doesn't get talked about with regard to these drugs too often, you mentioned Percy Harvin and Brett Favre. Oftentimes, I think when it comes down to, these issues, a lot of times race has something to do with it. Mm-hmm. When it comes down to it. Because the way Ricky was depicted, he was depicted as this, drug-addled guy who was just a hippie who wasn't very articulate. And if Ricky Williams were white, I guarantee you he would have been at least perceived as like a Bill Walton type,
right?
You know, where it's much more harmless. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Ricky was vilified, and he happens to be one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. So that was incredibly inaccurate and portrayed by a lot of media members who don't have the balls to be truthful. You know, because you have to give that tisk look and you know when you're reporting these stories as a journalist, you're part and parcel. You're judging them, you know, as you deliver the message. You know, there's not a lot of empathy involved, and you see that like in Run Ricky Run. In the first film, there was a guy named Jay Mariotti who was, you know, on camera in the American media calling Ricky a disgrace to humanity. Meanwhile, that guy, you know, within the last year has been arrested, you know, for domestic violence issues. So I think everybody lives in this glass house, you know, to a degree within the media, and they have no problem firing it.
Right. Well, you mentioned that, you know, you see the Coors Light cold hard facts coming out on the Fox television broadcasts or during the Super Bowl, you know, major ads for Budweiser with the horses kicking field goals and such. How much of the NFL's anti-weed stance, this demonization they have toward marijuana, do you think is related to these alcohol contracts, the need to be bringing in that alcohol ad money?
Oh, I think it's definitely related to it. You know, eventually, if marijuana has the same legal status as alcohol, eventually the stigma will disappear, and you're going to see leaves on race cars. Yeah. You have Budweisers on NASCAR. You're going to see leaves on race cars. You know, I mean, it's just stigma. It's stigma. You know, and you know, when I interviewed Alan, you know, St. Pierre, he talked to me about the fact there is so much money being put out by the tobacco companies and by the alcohol companies to keep marijuana illegal.
Right.
You know, there's a reason why. There's a reason why. You know, and it's not necessarily you know, based upon sound logic.
Right. Well, you mentioned Bill Walton. Of course, you're hitting me right in the home state here with Bill Walton and the Portland Trail Blazers, and you know, we've got examples all over all sorts of sports. You know, NBA has got plenty of examples we could mention, going back to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as being a medical marijuana user. Major League Baseball, you know, Tim Lincecum just won a World Series. He got popped just north of me here in Washington State for marijuana. Of the three major American pro sport leagues, NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, which is the hardest on marijuana and which is the most forgiving?
Well, I think the NFL, you know, is the hardest on marijuana because they actually have a drug testing policy that tests for it. You know, when was the last time you heard of a Major League Baseball player or an NBA player being suspended for marijuana? I don't believe the NBA actually even has drug testing for marijuana. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that they, you know, one of Ricky's coaches along the way during the process of doing these interviews, you know, he made a joke. And I'm not going to tell you which one it was because I don't think he'd appreciate it, but he made a joke saying that, you know, ostensibly if everyone was tossed off the team for marijuana intake, I wouldn't be able to field the punting squad. You know, I mean, so I think it's just that we put athletes in these very specific places. If you watch something like Entourage or you see other variations of pop culture where, you know, it's, you know, people engaging in smoking a little bit of weed, it doesn't have that stigma. But for whatever reason, if it's an athlete, then it's different. And that's directly tied into the fact that we make these kids our kids' role models. I mean, when this first started happening in 2004, when I first started filming Run Ricky Run, I was doing a cross-country trip, and I got into a conversation in a bar with a guy in New Orleans who's a security guy. And he ended up, you know, saying how Ricky let the kids down and everything else. And I said, well, who's your kid's role model? And he said, I am. And I said, well, I'm my kid's role model too. And I said, well, why is it that we wait for these guys to, you know, supposedly screw up, and then we point fingers at them and say that they're such bad role models to our children? Because if you're not pointing at these guys, your kids are going to be looking at you instead, you know, and which is what they should be doing.
Yeah,
these guys aren't my kids' role models. They entertain us on the weekends.
That's right. That's right. Now, do you think, and again, we're speaking with Sean Pamphilon from ESPN, do you think the photo a couple years ago of Michael Phelps did anything to change people's attitudes toward marijuana use?
No, I don't think so. I think it just led to a lot of poor jokes and a lot of, that lacked a lot of imagination. But I was interested. He's a Subway spokesman still, right?
Right.
Yeah, I'd be interested. Once again, delving back into the issue of race, I'd be interested to see if Michael Phelps would have been a Subway spokesman again, relatively as soon as he was. If he had a different background.
Yeah, and the new Subway ad campaign they took out when they brought him back was called SubwayFreshBuzz.com. So I think they know who they're marketing to.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Even if someone's not dealing with you on the real level, you can understand with the subtext of what's really going on. And I think that a lot of what I'm trying to do is just to eliminate the BS. I was on the road for a long time as a journalist. I've been around journalists. The people who were making fun of him, at least Ricky Williams in this case, were people who led lives with no more discipline, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So the hypocrisy of all of it was something that was just, it was stark, And I have a son who's 13 years old. I also have a son who's a year and a half. And when the subject of my film is on 60 Minutes with Mike Wallace, and Mike Wallace is interrogating him and making references to Bob Marley and marijuana and asking these questions, it gave me a great opportunity to have discussions with my child at an early age about peer pressure, about what he was going to face in school. So I also took him to a drug awareness seminar in his elementary school when he was in fourth grade. And 2 weeks earlier, the whole house is packed for a talent show. But when it was the drug awareness seminar, there was literally about 12 people in it. I just think that educating our children is the way to go, and giving them real information. And it's not just about what's illegal versus what's illegal versus illegal. There's reasons behind that. So I've taken it upon myself to educate my son about what's going on for real. So when people are asking him, making overtures to him, he has the ability to say no to what he wants, and make informed decisions as he gets older.
That sounds like a great way to raise a kid to me. Now, the big story, and we were going to have you on yesterday, but of course a big story broke yesterday that this lockout between the NFL owners and the Players Association had ended. They'd come to an agreement. Was drug testing involved in any of those negotiations? Was that a sticking point for the players or anyone?
The only thing that I've heard as far as being a sticking point was the human growth hormone testing. I don't think anybody has made marijuana a big issue, because the fact is in the NFL, they test you, I believe it's once or twice a year, unless you're in the drug program, and when it's coming. So unless you absolutely want to fail a weed test in the NFL, you're not going to. You're going to know when it's coming. But HGH is what they're really looking into and what they're really concerned about. I don't know. I think that's one of the final details that's being ironed out over the next day or two. It's not the sticking point that would have prevented a deal by any stretch of the imagination.
Sure. Now, you mentioned HGH, human growth hormone. People talk about steroids. That's, even gets congressional attention. So let's talk about that a little bit in these drugs that these players might take, these human growth hormones, these steroids. Of course, the NFL, the leagues have always been against these things. I've always kind of had an attitude that, used safely, perhaps these drugs could be a benefit. What's your personal stance on the whole enhancement and steroids issue?
Well, my feeling about the steroids issue, I think there's a discernible difference between steroids and HGH. My mind is not wrapped around exactly what that is, but from my understanding, the HGH is not as harmful to you. It doesn't have the same side effects as steroids do. And I think that HGH, I've talked to a few people that I think that's going to be something sort of like the drug of the future. Not for people within sports, but people without, outside of sports, in terms of rejuvenating you, to help you work out more, to help you have more energy and whatnot. From what I understand, that's going to be something that's going to be big down the line, and there's going to be some revisionist history on this whole thing with the way it was perceived in sports. My only issue with it, my big issue with it, is that I feel that everybody at least in sports, there's supposedly a level playing field. You know, one of the few places in our culture where you can say, okay, if I'm better than you, it's going to show up. And I like that. You know, I like it from the standpoint of, you know, there are a lot of kids who are coming up. They shouldn't have to do something to keep up with somebody else if it's going to be harmful for them. That's my biggest thing.
Yeah,
I mean, as far as the way things went down in Major League Baseball and the whole steroid crisis, people are attached to numbers in baseball and statistics in a way they aren't in any other sport. So it just revealed their hypocrisy, because I don't think anybody cares if football players, you know, are on steroids or HGH. It's not. It's way more of a back burner, you know. But the fact is like people should be more concerned about what one human being can do to another human being if he's jacked up, roided out, and physically running through him. Mm-hmm. Versus in baseball, people are concerned about just numbers because some guy hits over the ball over the wall too many times.
Yeah,
and it offends their sense of historical perspective. You know.
Yeah, I got into some of these discussions with some baseball purists on it, and I have to admit that I'm not, a baseball watcher at all. But the times that I did watch baseball, during the late 90s when Sosa and McGuire were chasing the home run records, I found that really exciting. And, of course, they said, well, the historical thing. And my response to that was always, yeah, but Babe Ruth didn't have, the body armor that the players wear. What's his name? The big slugger who wears the elbow guards and all, and didn't have, pitchers didn't have Tommy John elbow surgery back then. So, who's to say what's historically accurate and why are surgical enhancements okay and equipment enhancements okay, but chemical enhancements aren't? I think it's a really fascinating topic.
I totally agree with you, but like my only caveat to that, as I said, was if it's not in someone's best interest, I wouldn't want someone else to feel like they had to do something just to compete, to feel as if their skill set was being accurately represented. That's the only problem. But from a moral standpoint, I don't have a problem with that. If someone wants to do something like that to their own body, it doesn't affect me.
All right. We're speaking with Sean Pamphilon from ESPN, and let's go back to the marijuana subject here for just a second. Aside from the Nathan's hot dog eating contest, do you think it's an enhancing drug in any way?
Sure.
Performance enhancing?
Yes, absolutely. Which is something that most people always say, it's not going to be enhancing your performance. It's just going to make you sit and eat Doritos and stuff like that. That's not really true. If you look at someone like Bill Lee, who was a pitcher for the Boston
Spaceman Lee,
Spaceman. He's pretty adamant about the fact that he believes that pitchers, and when I was young, I pitched for 9 years. I wasn't smoking when I was pitching, but he made an analogy that it allows you to focus and relax in a way that could be very beneficial to your control, because you're just basically rewinding the same mechanism over and over again. If you get in that groove, I know personally because I covered the X Games and I also covered the Gravity Games for NBC, so I hung out with a lot of skateboarders, and I know a lot of skateboarders, like street skaters. There was one guy I did a story on once, and literally right after I shot with him for 2 hours in the morning, he was about to go compete, and he smoked a little bit, and he went and he did fine. And if you have certain adventure sports like that, I know there were snowboarders.
Right.
There are things that these people are doing that are extraordinary in terms of the actual physical risk, the way you put your body in places, that your neck's exposed. That I think from an anxiety level, seriously, people drop down into the zone and they can go with it. And I think that, when you're repeating habitual motions, the people I've talked to who've actually done it and competed, their estimation was it certainly didn't hurt them, or else they wouldn't have been doing it.
Right on. Well, I know that my putting in Wii Golf is much better when I've had a bowl. So, well, Sean, this has been a fabulous discussion here, and I want to make sure that we let people know, once again, who may have come in late, about your project, and in any ways by email or internet they can contact you to help support what you're doing.
I appreciate that, Russ. They can go to Kickstarter.com and search The Truth Cabin. My partners and I, one of the things that we're looking to do is we're trying to find 3,500 soldiers out there who can donate $25 for real journalism and honest journalism. The entire premise of this project is 100% truth, not just about marijuana, but just about the way you're feeling about a lot of different topics. So anybody out there who's looking to have the truth supported, we appreciate your support.
All right. And one last thing, you sent me this wonderful picture. I've got it up on the webcam right now. It's of it looks like about an 18-inch, maybe a 20-inch bong with a blue bottom and a red striped top with a kind of a glass spiral going around it, kind of an all red, white, and blue bong. Tell people about that.
Yes, I am officially declaring that not a bong, but a game-used, authenticated sports memorabilia Ricky Williams water pipe.
There we go.
And I confiscated that on my trip to New Orleans in 2004 from his apartment in the French Quarter. He said it was no problem if I keep it. It was his. So it has been game used. I'm looking to find an executive producer who partakes, who would love to take this off my hands and become part of this project. So we're looking to find a place where I can actually legally sell it and auction it off for someone who wants to help us as an executive producer of the Truth Cabin. So either you can get me on Kickstarter or contact me at PAMPH, P as in Paul, A, M as in Mary, P again, H, 23 at AOL.com. That's PAMPH23 at AOL.com.
All right. We've already got one listener in the chat room right now saying, give him my number. So you may have a sponsor sooner than you think.
Right on. I appreciate it, Russ.
The official game-used, authenticated... You better run me through it again. I got the whole
Ricky Williams sports memorabilia water pipe.
Yeah, it's got to be a one-of-a-kind. I don't think any sort of sports memorabilia auction has ever seen anything like this, so get your hands on it while you can. Sean Pamphilon is a sports journalist and producer with ESPN and working on The Truth Cabin. Make sure you check that out. Kickstarter.com to get more information. And the email address is pamph23 at AOL.com. Sean Pamphilon, thanks for joining us here on Normal Show Live, and come back anytime you like.
Thanks a lot, Russ. I appreciate it.
All right, folks. That's it today for Normal Show Live. We are the voice of the Marijuana Nation. Thanks for joining us. And coming up on tomorrow's show, we will have Dr. Mitch Earlywine in Skype as well, answering your live questions on marijuana culture, history, science, anything you might want to know about the history of marijuana or the current science about it. You can get your questions in with Dr. Mitch Earlywine. Make sure, folks, that you stay tuned for Hour 2. I've got a presentation from the National Review Online. That's from some Republican strategists who think Mr. Obama might have a problem with the youth vote, in part due to his stance on marijuana. It'd be interesting to see how that goes. Thanks for joining us here at Normal Show Live, Voice of the Marijuana Nation. Tomorrow, Ganja John and Wiz Kaliko should be back here in the studio. Hope to have them here. And for Cannabis Carry, I'm Radical Russ. Check us out at our blog at stash.normal.org. Always follow us live at live.normal.org. And my accounts on social networking are all under Radical Russ. Look under Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and Picasso Web. They're all Radical Russ. Got my photos from Montana already posted up there at the picassoweb.google.com/Radical Russ if you want any of those Montana photos or any of the photos from all of my adventures. And again, in Hour 2, we're going to talk more about the Seattle Suite. That's right, the party suite at Seattle Hemp Fest. You can be a part of it. Stay tuned in Hour 2 for more details. And that's it. We got to call it a day. Thanks for joining us here. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is Normal Show Live, the voice of the Marijuana Nation.
Take it on one more time. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.